I'm Paul Danczyk, today with Richard Figueroa, who is a Deputy Cabinet Secretary in the California Office of the Governor, where he works on health, human services, and veterans affairs issues. Richard, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Our participants have gone through our executive education programs, focus on a number of different leadership topics. And what I'd like to do today is have a conversation that focuses around the political acumen space. And when you think about the word political acumen, what surfaces for you?
Well, I mean, there's a traditional definition of political acumen, which just talks about which connotes like maybe understanding the overall environment in your workplace, the structure, the leadership structure of your office. In a governor's office or in a more political space, the political has kind of a double meaning. It has both the understanding of what your leadership structure is and understanding the chain of command, knowing when to intervene, when not. But it also has a purely more politics connotation as well. And that is understanding as well the dynamics of your office vis-a-vis outside organizations, outside players, whether it be what the actions you may or may not be contemplating, how they affect or might be viewed in the legislature, how they might be impacted by third parties, such as advocacy organizations that may be seeking particular viewpoints, both in the governor's office and through the legislature. So again, there's a traditional, this person has good political acumen, which means they kind of understand the inner workings of the office. They know where the alliances are. They understand how they might be able to impact a solution, kind of know when to show them, when to hold them. But in a truly more political environment, you have lots of outside forces that are also seeking to impact the decision. So kind of understanding, how you will work through that as well as how the legislature or even the judiciary may view a particular policy change or decision that you're making. So it has multiple levels. In a position like mine.
Yeah, I mean, you work with a lot of different types of individuals. Does political acumen look the same when you're working with electeds versus those that might be more the administration ranks versus stakeholders, or are there clear distinctions between how you show up?
I mean, I think inside the administration, you're certainly worried about your internal hierarchy. You have a department, then you have an agency, then you have the governor's office. So there's a particular hierarchy inside. When you're in the legislative side, you are worried about, your own role within the larger legislative sphere, whether you be a committee, a committee member, committee chair, the leadership of the particular legislative house that you're in. When you're in the governor's office, you have to worry about all of them. You have to worry about how the legislature is going to deal with the particular issue. The third house, as I said before, those that would be, seek to or have an opinion that are advocacy organizations, lobbyists, wherever you want to call them, as well as how the decision or the way you approach it is going to affect the people that work for you. Down your structure, because certainly you want to acknowledge all the hard work that's done at a departmental level and an agency level. But in the governor's office, you also have to look at an even bigger picture and look at how the decision you might make affects the other branches of government, as well as wanting to honor the work that your agencies or departments have done to bring the issue to the fore, and all the work that is involved in bringing a policy issue up through the chain.
When I'm hearing you describe that, what's going through my mind is thinking about the power dynamics that are involved, right? So maybe small p power, recognizing that there's some sort of power dynamics in all organizations. In your current role, I'm also hearing a lot of influence that's starting to surface, of recognizing you hold a certain position, yet there's a lot of characteristics around influence that might shape how you do the work that you do. How do you think about the idea of influence as it relates to power?
When you think of power, there's obviously a lot of times you think about kind of the brute force type of power, like you have the ability to order someone to do something. I think influence is a lot broader notion in terms of trying to actually convince or collaborate or cooperate with someone to kind of get them to better understand your position and maybe even influence them in a way that they will take your perspective. I think influence has a lot longer impact than does just power. Because a lot of times with power, and a lot of times you have to exercise power because you have no choice. It's an emergency situation. You have to make a quick decision, or there just isn't any other way to get through it than to say it is just this way because you have to do it that way. But if that's done consistently over a whole number of issues and you don't have a lot of buy-in, that's really not the best way to do it in the long term. Influence to me is more about being collaborative and more about convincing, and I think that has a much longer term impact on the policy position that you're espousing than just using power as kind of more of a brute force term.
What you're describing is what we teach as well, recognizing that power certainly it serves a role. It's often good for short-term gains, but it's not good for the long term, right? Because I
think that's absolutely the case. And again, you want to make sure that it also helps really when you have your superiors have confidence in you, that you know that you're collaborative, that you kind of know your stuff, and that's another way to kind of have longer term influence as well, because they're more willing to listen to you and come to you for thoughts and suggestions and input on issues.
Big segment of our alumni base are working in legislatures or have worked in legislatures for elected officials. As you think about that term of influence, you're talking about the long-term gain. How does that look whenever you're working with someone who's elected that might have term limits or have a short time in office?
I've worked in the legislature both under term limit time. I preceded term limits. So I started working for the legislature in the 80s prior to term limits, and that does have an impact. I think term limits itself has also evolved over time, and now we're in a place where legislators can stay longer than they were originally under the original scheme of term limits. So when I came in, there were people that were there 20, 30, 40 years and had built up a real strong expertise in a particular area, had very, very seasoned staff. We then went through a period of time when, term limits were for a shorter duration. And certainly you did have a situation where people, may have been looking, over their shoulder a little bit, what they might be doing next, or just weren't able to be there long enough to gain that expertise. Now we're kind of a place where in the middle, where people have longer periods of time. And so I think you're seeing, this year is a little bit unusual because you do have a lot more turnover than usual for a whole variety of reasons. But, the longer you are in a place, the more expertise you built up. And it is reasonable to think that people should be here just for some reasonable period of time and are better serving the public by being here for some reasonable period of time than just cycling through, all the time. Because I think then you are not able to invest. Major policy changes just don't take over overnight. California politics, separate apart from the initiative system, is really governed by lots of strategic incrementalism. Chipping away. And so some things just really do take a lot of time. And so if you have people that have a little bit longer term or longer term view of things, you are able to kind of build up the expertise in making those kind of incremental changes. And having a lot more patience than trying to, constantly just doing big things and maybe failing and then trying again real in a very short period of time. So I think having more time available to them better serves the system.
When you're looking at that type of continuum where there's a lot of time involved, how do you think about the idea of empowering others? What does that look like for you?
People power is very important in this process, and so. A lot of things that just can't happen. A lot of things just can't happen without people really getting behind it, without building up a head of steam. Any legislator will tell you, as well as the governor's office, that you always want to have people kind of behind you, but that means cultivating the grassroots. Certainly, legislators themselves have a whole network of people that they've worked with to get elected. Departments have a whole series of organizations they either have funded or somehow have engaged around advisory committees or other kinds of strategery that they can engage to assist them as well. But again, it's going to be very, very hard, for example, in the legislature for anything to pass if you don't have at least some movement behind it of individuals. So it really means cultivating the grassroots, cultivating other organizations to kind of make change. It's unusual for anybody to just kind of do things unilaterally, given the huge range of interests that exist in California.
And when you're describing that way, I'm mindful of your career, where you've had significant experience at the senior level within the legislative context, in the legislatures, within the executive branch, governor's offices, and the nonprofit side, working with the endowment. When you think about those experiences, what have those taught you about what it means to work across departments or sectors to get the work done?
Yeah, so I think one thing that's always characterized my philosophy about working is never make enemies, and you never know in this business, because administrations do change, political winds do change. We have had during my career both Democrats and Republicans have been either governor or been in charge of the legislature. I've worked for both of them, and so I've always kind of operated on, you don't always have to agree with people, but you can do so in a congenial fashion, so you're really not making enemies, because you never know where you're going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road, and those kind of relationships can really help you, later on in bridging divides that otherwise couldn't be bridged because people's knees so reflexively jerk sometimes on things. And so I've always kind of operated on a don't make enemies. Again, you can disagree philosophically, but that doesn't mean you can't treat people as human beings and still be congenial, even if you disagree. So I've always kind of been able to build on that, over the years, and it certainly has, I think, served me in terms of when I have needed to call, hey, can I talk to you about this, and vice versa. They can people. I'm very approachable as well. People can talk to me because I've maintained those relationships over the years without burning. You definitely don't want to burn them behind you. You certainly don't want to burn them in front of you either.
The whole idea of disagreeing without being disagreeable, valuing a relationship.
It's obvious. There's obviously especially if you look at social media, boy, it's just pretty toxic environment, and so kind of pains me to see it that way, given how we otherwise could be collaborating and having a more reasonable conversation about things, even if you have a philosophical disagreement about it.
I have one last mean question to ask you. What does your present self tell your past self about public service leadership?
It says my present self tells my past self it was all worth it. Over my entire time, it's been almost 40 years, basically, either about 30 some odd in government and 8 in a healthcare foundation. It's always been about incrementally trying to get folks covered, giving people adequate access to affordable health insurance. Obviously, having an insurance card isn't the only thing. You also have to figure out, make sure you're able to use it and have good networks, and it has to be affordable. But my entire career, I've always kind of been working toward universal coverage, and happy to say that we're kind of almost there. Coverage doesn't always mean affordability, but we're almost there on the coverage side. And so I would not have come back. I left when Governor Schwarzenegger left office. I left the governor's office at that point, then worked for California Endowment, as you noted before, which is the largest healthcare philanthropy in the state, for 8 years. And then when Governor Newsom came in, I came back in. And that was because I knew I wasn't able to finish the job where I was at California Endowment. I needed to come back into government and work for a governor that was interested in helping complete that task. And so that's kind of why I came back. So to me, it just says the whole thing was worth it, because I can kind of like see the universal coverage goal or rainbow or pot of gold. They're kind of, it's within sight now. It may not be till 2024 if the legislature does agree with the governor. And obviously there's other systems and things that are still, a lot of system changes are still needed to kind of make sure that coverage is accessible and affordable and quality. But again, I think for me, it's demonstrated that it's been worth it, because I'm able to show just from in my own little way that I was able to contribute to a larger societal goal, at least that I believe in, which is universal coverage for everybody living in the United States, but certainly at least in California.
Well, we're certainly better off because of your many efforts. Richard, thanks for joining us today and sharing your insights. I wish we had about 20 hours with you, but fortunately, it's still a few minutes away from you. So thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Great to see you.